Well, Dr. McKeever, I have the report here with me, and it almost reads like a strategic plan.
That's exactly what it is. It's a strategic plan for the development of science and technology, in particular industry, within the state. So it's an economic development plan.
And it was developed both with educators and industry input.
Exactly. University, industry, and the financial sector were the main contributors to the report.
Give me the overall view of what you found when you took a look at STEM education here in the state.
Well, first of all, let me say that the development of a science and technology infrastructure requires consideration at several different levels. But the underlying level, the base upon which it's all built, is STEM education. And STEM education is the core of the workforce that we will need to support our industries in the science and technology sector. So when we looked at the numbers coming through our education system, we found that we weren't producing enough to support the growth of the industries in the future. And then we started to ask the question, why? What are the issues here? And it appears that, well, as you know, as a fifth grader, you show me a fifth grader that doesn't like dinosaurs or spacecraft. So everybody at a young age loves science. They really do, whether they call it that or not. But then if you were to look at the numbers of those who say that they have aspirations to a science career as a function of time, as a function of their age, all the way through college, there's a steady decline in interest. Now that's worrying. Another aspect is if you look at the ACT scores in science and math over the last decade, they haven't shifted. They're all round about the same numbers, year after year, despite all of the various education reforms that we've had over the years. So clearly something is the issue. Well, there's one thing that is common to all reports and investigations into education, and that is the most critical person is the teacher. And so we focused our attention on the teacher, how to make them better, and in particular, how to get away from this notion that teaching is a vocation. It's not a vocation, it is a profession. It is a professional career.
So I think it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of times people say, well, I teach because I love to teach, but you think there needs to be other incentives for people to teach in the STEM field.
Absolutely. I mean, why punish somebody because they love to do what they do? Why say that because you love to teach, we don't have to pay you enough? The fact of the matter is that teachers have families too, and they have to survive too. And we're not competing with other schools when we consider the salaries of our teachers. We're competing with industry. So somebody who's highly qualified in a science or technology or mathematics area has the choice between a starting salary of, let's say, 45, 46,000 in industry and 30,000 in teaching. It's a very difficult choice for them to say, I want to be a teacher. And thankfully, numbers of them do.
And some of the recommendations that you have in this study is create a system of sign-on bonuses for STEM teachers.
Exactly. Now, again, the focus of this group is science and technology. And so we put our focus only on STEM education. And in order to compete, in order to attract the best scientists, trained as scientists coming out of our colleges, and to encourage them to get into the teaching profession, we need to have some kind of incentive, financial incentive, for them to do so. So we suggest a sign-on bonus, such that, for example, maybe 5, maybe 10,000 as a bonus, who knows what it would be. And if they commit to teaching in the Oklahoma education system for, say, 5 years, and these numbers should be discussed, but let's say 5 years, if they commit to doing that, then they keep that bonus, but if they leave earlier than that, then they have to return it. So it's an incentive for them to come in and to stay in. And then we have a proposal to increase the salary for STEM teachers, give them a higher salary than they're currently getting. That too is critically important to turn this into a profession that they can consider for the rest of their lives.
And you also talk about teaching methods, and one of them is to modernizing teaching methods at your colleges and universities. This from a physicist and a college professor. How did that come about?
Indeed. Well, at universities we've been struggling with the best way to teach very large classes. And it's a continuing dialogue at universities. We are always coming across this question. Well, one of the things about education in general, and I don't care whether you talk about college or high school or wherever it might be, education has a terrible reputation for reinventing the wheel. We tend to do endless studies about what's the best way to teach. Well, enough already. We've done a lot of research, and there is a lot of evidence out there that some of the traditional methods may not be the best, and some of the newer methods may well be much better. And so we're calling for a reconsideration of those traditional methods. Let's have a serious look, because the data is already out there. The research has already been done. The results are already in. There's plenty for us to look at without having to do another research effort into how to teach.
Is there a way to bring people from industry into the classroom?
Always. One of the benefits of that, especially at the younger level, in the, let's say, K through 12 in general, is that we will be telling and showing the kids what kind of career is available to them in the future. Many of them don't know what you can do with, let's say, a physics qualification or a chemistry qualification. They simply don't know what's out there, what's available. So to get professionals, industry professionals, to come into the classroom to illustrate what it is that is open to them is very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about attrition? Some of the numbers that I have seen is a lot of STEM graduates, or at least not a lot, some STEM graduates may get the degree, but they don't enter the field, or they may go into the field. And especially it's high among females, they may not stay in it. Is there anything that we can do there?
Well, those statistics will always be there. If you name any discipline, there'll always be somebody who moves out of that discipline. But I would say this, that even if that happens, to have a STEM-educated individual, even if they are operating in a different area, is very valuable for society, because those individuals will understand the value of a STEM education. And politicians need to understand that and grasp that. Many of the issues that politicians deal with are actually STEM issues, whether it be national issues or global issues. They need to understand science as well. So the fact that we educate them in science, but they go off into another discipline, there's not a lot wrong with that.
Well, when you mention politics, it goes lock and step with funding. And these classrooms are not the type of classrooms where you just sit down at a desk with a book. These are highly technical classrooms. So we're talking about an investment, are we not?
We are indeed. We are indeed. Now again, I remind you that this was an economic development strategic plan. So our focus was not education per se, it was workforce development for the private sector, for the industry within the state. And so when you think about that, you realize that the sector of our state that benefits the most from what we're talking about here is the private sector, industry. And therefore what we propose is a dialogue between the public sector and the private sector as to how we can fund these issues. I don't think that in today's times of recession, we can simply look to state government and ask for a handout to fund these kinds of programs. But I think what we can do is look to the private sector for a partnership, a public-private partnership. And so in the report, we called for a summit to start this dialogue between the political sector, the education sector, and the private sector to talk about how we can fund, as a state, these issues.
So we have the STEM college graduates. We get them into our classrooms. Then what happens?
Well, what we have to do is convert that vocation that I talked about into a profession. And one of the ways that we can do that is to have a career ladder for the teachers to go up. For example, currently, if a teacher enters the profession and then retires 35, 40 years later, they retire at exactly the same rank as they entered 35 or 40 years ago. And the reason for that is that there is no other rank for them to go to. Now, in higher education, we solved that problem many years ago, where we have assistant professors, then the next stage up, if you perform, associate professors, and then full professors and regents professors. Industry has a similar career ladder, but teaching does not. If you need to get a higher salary in teaching, you have to get out of the classroom and into administration. So let's have a career structure for our teachers. An entry level, followed by a more senior level, and then perhaps if you're a head of department, a science department, say, you can go to another level, but you have to perform and you have to apply for those promotional steps. And I'm not talking about annual salary increases. I'm talking about real promotional increases so that the teachers have a career in front of them that they can go for.
Almost team leaders.
Absolutely.
Dr. Stephen McKeever, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.